So you want to own a laundromat, and on paper, this is one of the cleanest small businesses in America. Roughly 30% of American households have no washing machine where they live. That's about 40 million households, people who do not have the option of doing laundry at home, not people who prefer not to, people who cannot. And it isn't only who you think. About a quarter of households earning over $75,000 a year don't own one either. Old buildings, no hookups, no room. Money doesn't install a drain line. Depending on who's counting and what they count, there are somewhere between 18,000 and 30,000 laundromats in the entire United States. Take the generous end, 30,000. 40 million households, 30,000 stores. That's roughly 1,300 households per laundromat. And here's the part that turns a good business into something that looks like a loophole. The number of laundromats is falling. Laundry and dry cleaning locations in this country are down almost 20% since 2005. Nobody builds new ones because building one is expensive, unglamorous, and requires plumbing. Most landlords will not let you install. Supply is shrinking. Demand is not. It's cash. Not cash flow. Cash. Quarters and card swipes settled the same day. No invoices, no receivables, no 30-day terms. Nobody can fail to pay you because the machine does not start until they do. There's no inventory. Nothing spoils. Nothing gets stolen off a shelf because there is no shelf. The equipment lasts 15 to 20 years. You buy a washer once and it earns for 2 decades. And it's about as recession resistant as a business gets. When money gets tight, nobody in a 5th floor walk-up buys a washing machine and pays to have a drain cut into the floor. And then the line that appears in almost every listing you will ever read. Semi-absentee, 2 to 5 hours a week. Collect the money, empty the lint, go home for 5 hours a week. In your head, that isn't a laundromat. In your head, that's an ATM you happen to own the building keys to. You're 30 years old. You've been married 2 years. Her name is Danny, and she's a night shift nurse in the emergency department at the regional hospital, which is going to matter more to this story than either of you currently understand. And you want this business specifically for a reason that is not a fantasy. You fix these machines for a living. You've been a commercial laundry service tech for 8 years. You carry a Speed Queen parts catalog in your head. You know the sound a bearing makes 3 months before it goes. You've been inside almost every laundromat in a 4-county area. And you have stood in those stores at 7 in the morning watching people load $12 of quarters into somebody else's machines while you were paid $41 an hour to replace a door lock. You've done the arithmetic in the van many times. And you know something nobody outside this trade knows, which is which stores are dying and why. You know which owner hasn't replaced a machine since 2003 and is quietly waiting for someone to take it off his hands. You don't need a market study. You've had your hands inside the market study. So you look up what it costs to build one from scratch, $200,000 to $500,000 for a single location, and the plumbing is the worst of it, $15,000 to $75,000 just for the pipes before a single machine goes in. The machines are another $150,000 to $300,000 installed. You have $52,000 and a work van that isn't yours. Your neighbor Bob is out front replacing a mailbox post when you get home. Bob is 53, owns 3 rental duplexes across town, and has called himself a real estate guy at every barbecue for 6 years. You tell him. Bob says, "Let me get this straight. You want to build a business where your entire customer base is people who can't afford a washing machine." Then he laughs and says the thing you'll remember for 16 years. Stay in the van, man. The van's a good job. You can't build. Building is $200,000 you do not have. But you know which stores are dying. In February, a man named Errol calls you out to a store on the east side for a dryer that isn't the problem. The problem is that Errol is 68, his wife is sick, and he has been running this store alone since the Bush administration. 22 washers and 20 dryers, average age 19 years. 8 of them tagged out of service with masking tape. A boiler you have personally repaired 4 times. $268,000 a year in revenue. About $94,000 in owner's earnings, which sounds better than it is, because roughly all of it is Errol's own labor. He wants $340,000. He'll take $295,000 because he's tired, and you're the only person who's ever walked in and correctly identified what's wrong with his store. So you go to a bank, and here is where you learn the first real thing about this business. The bank is not underwriting your laundromat. The bank is underwriting your lease and your machines, and both of yours are bad. The lease has 4 years left and no renewal option. The loan officer flags it in the first meeting, because most laundromats take 7 to 10 years to fully repay the capital that goes into them. And if your lease is shorter than your payback period, you aren't investing, you're gambling. You have 4 years of legal right to stand in that room. The machines are 19 years old, and a 19-year-old washer is not collateral. It's scrap with a hookup. And then the third problem, which is the one that actually ends it. SBA lenders generally want a personal credit score around 680 or better. You're at 641 because you spent $2,009 carrying your father's medical bills on 3 credit cards, and the file has never healed. The SBA says no, so you build it out of pieces. Errol carries $60,000 on a seller note. An equipment distributor finances $135,000 against a partial re-equip. Your own $52,000 goes in. You are $48,000 short, and you have 19 days. You tell Bob over the fence, not asking, just talking. And Bob, who told you to stay in the van, says he'll write the check for $48,000. Then he tells you the price, 8%, not a year, 8% a month, $3,840 every single month until the 48 comes back. He quotes it in the calm voice of a man reading a weather report. And then he says, that's a real estate rate. You're a risk. You take it. You close in May of 2011. You are 31 years old. You own 22 washers, 20 dryers, 8 rolls of masking tape, and 4 years of somebody else's building. You owe your neighbor $3,840 a month. You spend your first full year learning the thing that reorganizes everything. Revenue is $291,000. Up a little because you fixed the 8 dead machines in your first week. Then the first bill cycle closes and you go find a chair. Utilities, water, sewer, gas, electric, run 20 to 30% of revenue at a laundromat. Yours are at 25%, $73,000 a year of water and gas and power for a store doing $291,000. Rent is $42,000. Insurance, coin collection, supplies, repairs, the attendant you have to have on weekends. And here is the sentence that is the actual business and that nobody puts in a listing. You do not own a laundry business. You own a utility resale business. You buy water, natural gas, and electricity at whatever the utility decides to charge you. You convert them into clean clothes, and you sell them back in a room you rent to the most price-sensitive customers in the American economy, people who are physically counting quarters at the machine. Your margin is the spread between those two prices. You control neither one. That is the whole thing. Everything that happens for the next 15 years of your life happens inside that sentence. Being able to fix the machines is worth less than you thought. You got into this because you understood the machines, and the machines are not the expensive part. The expensive part is the meter, the lease, and the person you pay to stand in the room. You were an expert in the one-line item that was already the smallest. Then the third thing, which is the one that actually hurts. Semi-absentee, 2 to 5 hours a week. You work 70 hours a week. Because semi-absentee describes a store somebody else already fixed. Yours is a rescue. Take home for the year, $28,000. Because $3,840 of every month's profit walks across the street to Bob. Danny is working 3 12-hour night shifts a week and is at this point the reliable income in your household. You are on opposite clocks. There's a stretch that fall where you go 11 days without being awake in the same room at the same time. And you know this because she starts leaving notes on the counter, and you write back on the same piece of paper. And neither of you says out loud that you are now a household that communicates by document. Bob from his driveway watching you unload a dryer motor at 8 at night. How's the ATM? You pay Bob off in month 16, September of 2012. Principal, $48,000. Interest paid, $61,440. $109,440 total on a 16-month loan. The bank you couldn't qualify for would have charged you about $5,800. You hand him the last check in his driveway. He puts it in his back pocket without looking at it and says, "See, that's what I do. I put money to work." You do not respond to that. Your son is born in June of 2013. Danny goes back on nights after 11 weeks because her benefits are the family's benefits. Your mother-in-law moves into the back bedroom, ostensibly for 2 months. She stays 4 years. The three of you run a rotating schedule on an index card taped inside a kitchen cabinet. And for 2 years, that index card is the actual operating document of your family. You are not at the hospital when your son first walks. You're at the store because it's a Tuesday and the boiler is out. And a store with no hot water is a store with no business at all. You get the video at 4 in the afternoon. You watch it in the mechanical room. It isn't a tragedy. It's just the first clear look at what the arrangement actually is. And 2014 is the year you stop trying to win on the thing you're good at. Machine uptime is table stakes, not an edge. So you go after the meter instead. You replace the two oldest, thirstiest washer banks with high-efficiency front loaders financed through the distributor again. New water heater. Reprogram cycle times. Utilities go from 25% of revenue to 21%. 4 Points is about $12,000 a year that used to belong to the water company and now belongs to you. Revenue barely moves, $305,000, but take home goes to $79,000. Hours 66, which is not an improvement any normal person would recognize as one. This is the year you find the thing that changes the shape of the business, and you find it by accident from a woman named Carmen who has been coming in every Saturday for 3 years. She asks if you just wash it for her. She'll pay. You say yes because it's Carmen. Then you go stand in your own store at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday and actually look at it, and you see the thing you've been walking past for 5 years. 2/3 of your machines are sitting still. Laundromats are a peak business. Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon, weekday evenings, packed. Tuesday afternoon, that room is a very expensive empty room. Then the cost of it does not go down. You are paying full price for capacity you are throwing away. So you sell the same machine hour a second time. Wash, dry, and fold. Price by the pound. You do the work at the hours when the room is empty on equipment you are already paying for whether it turns or not. Then pick up and delivery on top of it, in a used van, on a route. Operators who add wash and fold typically see it become 25 to 40% of total revenue inside the first year, at a gross margin that should clear 50% before overhead. Labor is the main input, at roughly a quarter to a third of the service revenue. You retool the store properly that year. 26 washers, 24 dryers, $137,000 financed on new equipment, and you hire 3 people, which means you are now, for the first time, an employer, and you are bad at it. Revenue, $438,000. Wash, dry, fold, and delivery are $136,000 of that, 31%. Utilities are down to 19% of revenue because the new machines drink less. Take home, $126,000. Your son is 3. You make it to things now. Some of them. Your lease comes up for renewal in March of 2018, and you learn the second real thing about this business, the one that could have ended it. You have spent 7 years and roughly $300,000 improving a room you do not own. The plumbing you upgraded is attached to his building. The water heater is bolted to his floor. The customers know his address, and your landlord, not a villain, just a man with a spreadsheet and an appraisal, looks at a laundromat visibly 4 times busier than the one he leased to Errol, and comes back with a renewal at 44% above what you're paying. You have no leverage, and you both know why. Moving a laundromat is not moving. It's rebuilding one. You cannot take the drains. You sign it. You have no choice, and you sign it, and you spend that night doing arithmetic at the kitchen table with Danny, who says the sentence that redirects the next 8 years. So buy the next building. So you do. Store 2 in 2019 is not a business purchase. It's a real estate purchase with a business inside it, a tired store on the north side, and the freestanding building it sits in for $410,000, financed over 25 years instead of 10. Because when real estate is in the deal, the loan term changes and the payment drops by more than a third. 2 stores. You are now the landlord of one of them and the tenant of the other. And you can feel the difference in your chest every month when the 2 payments go out. Your hours go up before they go down, 62 a week through most of 2019, because you're running one store and rebuilding another and driving a delivery route between them. Combined revenue, $790,000. Take home, $198,000. Bob, seeing the second store's logo on your van. 2 of them. Careful you don't get overextended. Somewhere between the second store and the 5th, the business changes species. It stops being a store you work in and becomes a route you run. 5 locations inside a 22-mile radius, 1 shared wash-dry-fold production hub, 2 vans, a district manager at $68,000 a year who handles the 6 a.m. phone calls that used to be yours, card systems in every store, so you finally know by machine, by hour, which of your 240 pieces of equipment are earning and which are furniture. You own the buildings under 2 of the 5. Your hours, 50 a week. Set that against 70 in 2012. That's the curve this entire video is actually about. Not the money curve, the hours curve. Income rose more or less continuously. Hours peaked in year 1 and did not meaningfully break until you had 5 stores and a manager under you. 9 years sat beneath the top of that arc, and they were the 9 years your son was 0 to 8. And they were the 9 years you and your wife communicated in writing. Revenue across 5, $2,100,000. Take home $430,000. You are by any measure applied from the outside doing extremely well. Everything above is what this genre usually shows you. Here's the part it usually doesn't. Remember what you figured out in year 1, that you don't own a laundry business. You own a utility resale business, and you control neither the price you pay nor the price you charge. That was not a clever framing. That was a warning, and 2022 is the year it collects. Russia invades Ukraine in February. European buyers start bidding for every molecule of gas on the world market. American gas goes with it, and the Henry Hub spot price, the benchmark your dryers ultimately run on, averages $6.45 per million BTU across 2022, the highest annual average, in real and nominal terms, since 2008. It peaks on August 22, 2022 at $9.85, up more than 50% year over year, the 4th largest annual jump ever recorded. You have 51 gas dryers. And it isn't only gas, because the other half of your meter has been climbing the whole time, and nobody noticed because water bills are boring. Since the year 2000, water, sewer, and trash service in this country has risen 207%, against 93% for overall inflation. Your utility line across 5 stores goes from about $394,000 to $551,000 in a single year. And now you find out what the sentence in year 1 was actually for. Because you cannot reprice, not quickly and not by much. Your customer is a person standing at a machine with a specific number of quarters in her hand and a specific number of loads to wash. And if you raise a wash from $375 to $450, she does not pay it. She washes at a higher temperature setting less often, or she goes to the store 11 blocks away. This is the most demand-elastic customer base in retail, and you have spent 11 years being told it is the most stable. You are not alone in the arithmetic. In the Coin Laundry Association survey that year, 65% of operators said they plan to raise vend prices in the next 12 months, up from about 34% before, and offsetting utility costs was the number one reason cited by nearly 64% of them. So you raise prices, carefully, less than the increase. You eat the difference. Every fixed cost keeps taking the same bite out of a number that shrank underneath it. Rent on 3 lease stores does not move. Your equipment notes do not move. Your district manager still gets paid. The vans still need fuel, and fuel is having its own year. Take-home falls to $255,000 across 5 stores, less than you made on 2 stores in 2019 would have suggested, and barely more than half of the prior year. Your hours go back up to 56, because when margin disappears, the first thing an owner does is reinsert himself into the labor line. You do not open a 6th store that year. You sell in 2026. At 46, 7 stores. Around $720,000 a year in owners' earnings across the group, coming out of the squeeze. A real wash, dry, fold, and delivery operation that is now roughly 1/3 of the revenue. Card data on every machine. 4 of the 7 buildings in your name. But you do not sell it the way you thought you would at 30, because the buyer, a regional operator rolling up stores across 2 states, wants the businesses. He does not particularly want your real estate, so you split it. Single-store laundromats trade at roughly 3 to 5 times owners' earnings. Multi-store groups with real systems sit at the top of that band and above it. Your 7 stores, with a delivery business and clean card system numbers, go at 4.2 times. $3,024,000 for the operating companies. Then reality applies itself. $1,660,000 in outstanding debt across equipment notes and 2 mortgages, broker and legal, then taxes. You net about $1,900,000, and you keep all 4 buildings, which the man who bought your stores now rents from you for about $186,000 a year on triple net leases for the next 15 years with options. 16 years, 30 to 46. Bob is 69 and retired and still owns his 3 duplexes. Bob comes over to look at the paperwork on your kitchen table and reads the words landlord and your name in the same sentence and says completely sincerely, which is the remarkable part, "I always believed in you." He says it in the same driveway where he told you to stay in the van and where he charged you 8% a month. You say, "Thanks, Bob. That's a good outcome." You should hear all the ways it isn't the normal one. You were never in the laundry business. You were buying water, gas, and electricity at a price somebody else set and reselling them, converted into clean clothes, at a price your customer could barely tolerate. Utilities are 20 to 30% of revenue in this industry and have risen faster than inflation for 25 straight years. 2022 didn't create that exposure. It presented the bill. Semi-absentee is a finish line sold to you as a starting line. Every listing says 2 to 5 hours a week. It took 10 years, 5 stores, a district manager, and a delivery hub to make that sentence true, and the 9th of those years was the year your son turned 8. The lease is the business, right up until you own the building. You spent 7 years and $300,000 improving a room somebody else owned, and he repriced you 44% because he was legally entitled to, and you signed, because you cannot pick up a laundromat and carry it. Every dollar of the final number that feels like wealth, the buildings, the $186,000 a year in rent, came from the night your wife said buy the next building. Most people who buy one laundromat own one laundromat forever. The arc you just watched is being described because it's watchable, not because it's typical, and the store count keeps falling. Yours held. That was partly your judgment about which neighborhoods to buy in, and partly luck, and you should be honest with yourself about the ratio. So what did 16 years actually buy? Not a laundry empire. You bought a dying store from a tired man in 2011 because you were the only person who knew exactly what was wrong with it, and then you spent 16 years slowly discovering that everything you were good at going in was the least valuable thing in the building. The meter was the problem, and the lease was the problem, and both of them were being read by other people. You didn't get rich washing clothes. You got rich by stopping paying rent, and then by charging it. That was one man's arc, and it started in 2011, buying a distressed store from a seller who was out of road, at a price that only existed because his wife was sick. You are not buying in 2011. First, what one costs. The median asking price for an established laundromat in the United States is $500,000, ranging from under $300,000 to well over $900,000. In California, it's a different market entirely, a median of $799,000. But the asking price is not the number that matters. An SBA 7 change of ownership loan wants a minimum equity injection of about 10%, and lenders generally want a credit score of 680 or better. And the one that actually kills people, the equipment reserve. A laundromat's machines are 15 to 20-year assets, which sounds wonderful right up until you understand what it means. Every laundromat is somewhere on a 20-year replacement clock, and the seller knows where it is, and you do not. A store with 16-year-old equipment isn't a store with working machines. It's a store with a $150,000 to $300,000 bill arriving inside 4 years, priced as though that bill does not exist. Call it $120,000 to $185,000 in cash to own a $500,000 laundromat, and that is before you have funded a single dollar of the re-equip. Now the part you came for. How much do you actually make? There are 3 tiers, and they are 3 completely different businesses. Tier 1, the median store, $500,000 to buy. It does about $319,000 in revenue and about $120,000 in owner's earnings. Finance $450,000 of that price on a 10-year note at today's rates, and your debt service is roughly $73,000 a year. $120,000 minus $73,000. You clear about $47,000. Now say the quiet part. That $47,000 is not profit. That is your wage. Owner's earnings includes the labor you personally supply, and at the median store, you are supplying a great deal of it. Hire a manager and the attendant hours to do what you'd be doing, and you're paying $45,000 to $60,000 for it. Strip that out, and the median laundromat, bought at the median price on a normal 10-year note, earns as a business, as opposed to as a job, approximately zero. That is arithmetic on real medians, and it explains everything else about this industry, and why every listing leads with the word absentee, because the moment you price the labor honestly, the median deal stops working. Tier 2, the store with the building, $900,000 to $1.5 million, doing $600,000 to $900,000 in revenue and $220,000 to $300,000 in earnings. On a 10-year note, $1.1 million costs about $178,000 a year, and the deal barely functions. Put the real estate in it. The loan amortizes over 25 years, and the payment falls to about $125,000. Same store, same earnings, same price. $53,000 a year of difference, created entirely by owning the walls. Tier 2 isn't a bigger laundromat. It's where you stop renting the room. Tier 3, the route. 4, 6, 10 stores with a shared wash-dry-fold hub and a delivery operation, trading at 4 to 6 times earnings because the owner is genuinely removable. $2.5 million and up. That is not a business you buy. It's one you build into the way he did over 16 years. So who is this a good business for? It is good for the person whose thesis is the building, not the machines. Own the real estate and put a stable, hard-to-evict, cash-generating tenant in it, and that tenant is you. A laundromat improves the property, never misses rent, and cannot be replaced by anything on the internet. It is good for the value-add operator. The tired coin store with 16-year-old machines, no card system, and no wash-dry-fold is the entire opportunity, because the levers are mechanical and known. Cut the utility line with efficient equipment, then sell the idle capacity as service work at 50% gross margin. And it is a bad business for 3 people. Anyone who wants passive income. There is a version of this that becomes nearly passive. It's on the far side of a decade and several stores. And the listing that promised you 5 hours a week was describing that far side. Anyone signing a short lease. Payback runs 7 to 10 years. If your lease is shorter than that, you're not investing, you're renting an option on your own capital, and your landlord holds the strike price. Anyone with no reserve past the closing. Not the down payment, the re-equip. You are buying a position on a 20-year clock, and the seller is selling because of where the hands are. And anyone whose thesis is, people will always need to wash clothes. They will. That's not an investment thesis. The question is whether the specific 1,000 households inside your 1-mile radius still lack a washing machine in 12 years, in a country where the store count has fallen 20% since 2005, and every new apartment gets hookups. Get those right, and this is a genuinely good business. Boring, cash settled, recession durable, and attached to real estate you can own. Get one of them wrong and you have bought a 50-hour job with a $120,000 headline, and once you pay yourself honestly, nothing underneath it.